Here we go. Yeah.
What's up, guys?
That's amazing that it worked.
That was so sick. I freaking love this
Seinfeld
thing.
intros only from here on out.
Yes,
that's our cold open.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping.
That's awesome.
Oh my god, amazing. That's so good. What is going on, y'all? My name is Joseph. I'm one of your hosts here at the MTG Thoughtcast, and I'm hanging here with two of my besties. Somewhere else on the screen is my brother in blood, John Kendall. John, what's going on, buddy?
Hello, we're here. I just got back a while ago from visiting you. Feeling a little under the weather today, but we're going to truck it through.
Oh, nice. Well, I'll only give you 1,000 words to say today. So we'll keep it nice and concise for you.
You better be counting.
Will do. So somewhere else on the screen is Jared Bobier, another homie.
Yo, what's up, guys?
What's going on, man?
Dude, just got off work a little bit ago and clocking into my other job, you know?
That's right. Slinging some spro and then slinging with the bros. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Slinging some spells, slinging some spro. Yeah.
Classic. That's a good day, honestly.
I'm having a great time.
If I could write down like a perfect day, it might be coffee and magic. You know?
Honestly, yes.
You kind of live my dream life.
I'm kind of living a dream life. Can't lie. I love my life.
That,
it's
dude.
pretty dope.
Love that, dude. Well, and that makes us your hosts, which makes this the MTG Thoughtcast. And you're watching. And if you're watching, we love you. Thanks for watching. There's a bunch of buttons at the bottom. Just go ahead and click all those real quick. Do all the things. Likes, comments, subscribes help us out immensely. We're I think as of recording, we're 14 subscribers away from 100. So nice. If you're watching this, if you're seeing it, and you're not subscribed, we would love it if you would subscribe. And then if you want to jump in all of the real discussion, all the post-show, the in-between the shows, all of that, there's a link to our Discord down below as well. We'd love to have you there. It's a good time. Guys, this is our 20th podcast episode. And to celebrate a fifth of 100, we're going to go through our 20 cards that you should be playing in Commander. So we're just going to round table this. We've all compiled lists of cards that we play that have been well over, they punch above their weight, that we think that you guys should be playing as well. So some quick caveats. We took all of our metrics today are coming from EDH Rec. Shout out EDH Rec. Shout out the EDH Rec cast. Joey, Dana, and Matt are amazing. Love them. So all of our data today is coming from EDH Rec, and we have banned the EDH Rec top 100 cards from discussion because if they're on there, you're probably already playing them. So you don't need to hear us tell you that you should be playing those cards. They're already being played. So looking over our notes.
Did you know you should be playing Soul Ring?
Right. Oh. Yeah.
I'm here to remind you that Displays for Kitten's a good card.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we're talking some revolutionary things here.
Have you heard of this little hidden gem called Command Tower?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this is the opposite of an auto includes episode. This is our 20 cards that you should be playing. You can write these down. You can throw all of these in a 5-color deck if you want to. But since we have 20 cards to go over, let's go ahead and get into it. Jared, take us away with your first card that the great people watching the MTG Thoughtcast should be playing.
Amazing. I gave myself a little bit of an extra. I just wanted, I don't know if it's an extra caveat or whatever, but I wanted to make sure these weren't just like the most corner case cards because it would be pretty useless for me to recommend cards that only work in like a specific style of deck and like 90% of you guys can't use the information. So I tried to make it to where these are all cards that are essentially like lesser known, underplayed cards that could be a staple. So consider playing them. Also, when we were building these lists, we were all trying to stay below like 5% play rate on EDHREC. So every single one of these picks, I think from all three of us, is 5% or below. And we'll let you guys know after each card too.
Real quick,
So,
let the good people know when we're talking about percentages on here, what does that mean?
Oh, so percentage of cards, or the amount of decks that this card is currently played in that it could be played in. That's what that percentage means. So
nice.
Yeah. That
So
number is
like
crazy high, but yeah, like a 2 or 1% is like a tiny amount of that pool. So
nice.
Yeah. Without further ado,
go on with it.
A card that Joseph talked me into for my Ramos deck. We have Colossal Sky Turtle coming back for the conversation on the channel. Let me pull him up. So,
the channel.
Oh, woo. Speaking of Colossal Sky Turtle, it has 2 channels. But to get there, you have to pay 4 green, blue for this 6/5 turtle. It says turtle in the type, but it says Sky Turtle in the creature name. So I'm a little mad about that.
I think that sky is a descriptor of where you might find this turtle. I don't know if it's
fair.
As you traditionally do.
Right.
Yeah. So other than the creature type not also being Sky Turtle, it has flying, it has Ward 2, which is great already. It has channel 2 and a green, discard this card, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. And it has channel 1 and a blue, discard this card, return target creature card to its owner's hand. So this is a toolbox card. We've been talking about modal cards in Discord a lot over the last 2 days because of all the new spoilers, but some old school stuff is great too. So Colossal Sky Turtle with its 2 channel modes is an excellent choice for pretty much any deck that can handle those colors. It's just such a toolbox. And I hated this card for thematic reasons only.
It made you so mad when I brought it up to you, but I was like, hey, ignore the fact that it's a Sky Turtle.
Yes.
What if I told you could play a card that was like an uncounterable regrowth and also an uncounterable bounce up non-land permanent?
You know how good it feels to channel something and then everyone is like, someone's holding back a counter spell or something and they realize they cannot use it against you? Like, that is sick.
And then
it's so much better.
Worst corner cases, you get to play a gigantic flyer that has Ward 2.
Yeah. So literally never bad. This card is just aces.
Or you've now shoved it into the graveyard for reanimation.
Exactly. Yeah, you just don't lose. So that's Colossal Sky Turtle. It's played in only 2% of the decks that it can be played in, according to EDHREC.
Wild.
I personally don't know how EDHREC collects its data, but for me, it's like I have my decks loaded into Moxfield. I'm assuming they're like aggregating data from Moxfield and like Archidect, all those different places. So, he's in. I am part of that 2%. You guys should consider also being part of the 2%. So, that's my first pick.
EDHREC says that it's in 2% of 828,253 decks. So it's in just over 15,000 of the decks that could play it of the ones that they're aggregating.
That's wild. That's really crazy to me. I also feel like out of the people in our play group that have Simic in their deck, I'm the only person running this card. Like, access to green and blue, I'm the only person playing this. To be fair, I'm not playing it in all of those decks, but yeah,
I get why people would probably be like stuck up on thinking that like the card is probably no good, because on the one hand they just see a casting cost for a creature that just like, technically speaking, apart from the channels, is kind of what's referred to as like French vanilla. It just is a dude that has keywords on it, no other abilities per se. It is also half an enchantment as well, so it's susceptible to that kind of removal and sweeping and those kinds of things as well. So people get caught up on those two aspects, but realize that those 2 points about the card is the worst of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's good because of the uncounterable
If you think about it, like
abilities.
it's actually a card that has 3 modes instead of 2, and the third is you can cast it as a creature if you have to. That's just change the way you think about it. It has 3 modes now, and it's Colossal Sky Turtle. You should consider playing it. You guys want me to move on to my next pick?
I figured we'd just round table it.
Yeah, so round table. You guys take the next.
Let's do it popcorn style. Just call on somebody.
I like it. That's more fun. I'm going to toss the ball over to John.
Okay. Well, I've got an interesting thematic pick. Let's say our good turtle friend is down in play, and you've got the ward cost to pay as well. How are we going to remove this turtle? Commander, we're in a modern age of Commander where there are so many power-up and crept versions of cards that, yes, probably are the correct play to have in the deck that you're playing it in, but sometimes you just need a little bit of some of the older stuff, some of the things that, yeah, you probably could be playing a better version of this, but you need something that's just like clean, simple, not too bogged down with abilities and word text and other keywords about it as well. You sometimes just got to go find the classic stuff. And for me, this is attributed very, very highly in the removal that people play in Commander nowadays. We are so spoiled on choice on the things, especially targeted removal, that have either a specific parameter or do something consequential or beneficial for your opponent. I like to stick with just the clean classic stuff. Let's talk about Hero's Downfall. Just a simple classic of mine. I've said before that original Theros is very, very special to me, and Hero's Downfall is one of the reasons for that. This instant is very clean and simple. 1 black and a black for an instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Easy.
Doesn't get more clean cut than that.
The kind of removal we have nowadays that is played in Commander, you've got stuff like Chaos Warp that gives a person a card back into play. You've got Beast Within and Stroke of Midnight and Generous Gift that all remove very valid targets in play, but also gives your opponent something back in return. You've got Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares and Nature's Claim, all of which, again, are very key removal in higher power pods, but again, give your opponent something back in return. If you're looking for just solid, clean, no holds bar removal, this is the stuff. The fact that it also hits planeswalkers as well, this is something that a lot of our modern removal does not hit. Like Generous Gift can hit non-land permanents, but if you get to stuff like Infernal Grasp and Power Word Kill, things like that, they can't hit planeswalkers. And every once in a while, you'll run into a deck strategy that is using a planeswalker in some kind of thematic purpose for being in that deck, and you don't want to spend creature attacking to kill it. So just easy, clean removal. This kind of bracket sort of like encompasses basically anything that is just simple targeted spot removal. So like Vindicate, Bedevil, Utter End, kind of all encompassed in this little strategy. But I like Hero's Downfall the most because it is 1 color to have, so it's very flexible to put into a variety of decks.
Yeah. At what point do you consider not putting this in a deck because of the double black pips?
Probably when you're above a 3rd color, if I would have to assume. You could
you would still, I'd probably still throw it in 3 color.
Depending, again, because 3 color decks and like plus like that, like even though they have multiple colors in them, the chances are that backbone of the deck is structured by a 1 or 2 specific colors, you know what I mean? Like, take like in the case of Heroes Downfall here, take like a Mardu tokens deck of some kind. Chances are that deck is probably backboned by white and black, or white and red, or black and red, you know what I mean? With like the 3rd color kind of being a splash in there. So double pip stuff is not too challenging to pull off, especially when you're in 2, possibly 3 colors.
Mm-hmm. Love it, dude.
Like it, dude.
That's a good one.
At the same time.
Stereo.
Let's go.
Should I do my first?
Yep.
Joseph, take it away.
We can just go around the table.
I'm going to start with what is probably one of my favorite cards in the game that is currently only being played in 5% of the decks that could play it. And that is Wheel of Misfortune. So there's a couple of reasons why I love this. For starters, it's for most cases, it is a budget alternative to Wheel of Fortune. Like, you can almost always game it so that you're going to wheel. There's been very rare cases where I've wanted to wheel my hand and played Wheel of Misfortune and didn't get to. So it's good in that sense because Wheel of Fortune's like a $400 card.
It's so expensive.
Getting a budget alternative to it, or even an additional copy if you're playing in a proxy-friendly tournament or something, like you want to play another copy of it. I also just think it's fun. Like, I have fun explaining how this card works. You almost always need like a whiteboard or an infinite token.
It feels like a mini game happens every single time.
I like, what you'll notice is I love mini games. So if we can like pause our game real quick and like Shahrazad, then I'm going to do it. Like, so Wheel of Misfortune feels so fun to me. A quick description for the people who don't know what it does, even people who have played it and don't know what it does. So everybody at the table secretly chooses a number 0 or higher. The lowest number does nothing. The highest number takes that much damage. Everybody who didn't choose the lowest number discards their hand, draws 7. It's actually way simpler than it looks. It just is a novel because they have to write it out that way. Especially if you're not playing a blue deck and you're playing red, you're gonna need ways to draw cards. And the amount of times that this helps when you just like play all of your ramp cards and then you just wheel and refill your hand, it feels so powerful and so good. So more than 5% of decks should be playing Wheel of Misfortune.
It boggles my mind that this even ended up on this list. I couldn't believe only 5% of decks are playing this. Like,
so see, I could believe it because people have this bad taste with wheels because we as Commander people are so incredibly funny. We set down like a 3-card combo that draws us 15 cards at a time. Great. If somebody plays one card that makes you discard what you have and redraw, absolutely not. Cut off the line.
Yeah,
and that's really one of the big benefits about Wheel of Misfortune. You still get the absolute joy of having to do a discard your probably empty hand now, draw 7, and anybody else who doesn't want to abide by that can just pick 0 on
if
the
you
card.
don't want to wheel, pick 0 and you're not going to wheel. 0, almost every time I've played it, 0 has been the lowest number. So like you can go in and like, I feel like on average I pick 2. Like 2 is usually what I pick because I'm like, somebody's going to pick 0 if they don't understand how the card works or whatever, they're probably going to pick 1 as their lowest number. So I know that 2 is usually going to sneak in between the lowest and the highest numbers.
Anyway, I have a tendency to go high.
I do too because I'm afraid. I'm like, I have to wheel. I like.
Dude, that's
can't
the thing
risk
is
it.
like if you really have to wheel, you can go like, sweet, I'm going to take 5 life and wheel. It still is worth it to
like
me.
8 off of a Wheel of Misfortune before.
Yes,
just because I'm not willing.
If you're
to not
choosing
have it
less than the number 7, sorry, I didn't want to speak over you.
Oh, go for it, dude.
If you're choosing less than the number 7, it still is more efficient than a Necropotence. Think of it that way.
Think about it. That's a great way to think about it. Also, this has a huge upside too, because one of the other downsides of wheels, especially when you get into a more competitive environment, is you have to think about the card advantage you're giving your opponents. You're letting other people draw a collective 21 cards when you draw 7. So if people pick 0 in this and don't draw, it actually diminishes the downside of wheels, where you're letting your opponents gain card selection off of what you are doing. So yeah, I honestly think this card is freaking awesome. That's why it's so shocking to me that people don't play it more.
I would counter your point about wheels that you're probably not playing wheels, the hardcore ones like Wheel of Fortune or the like Windfall and stuff like that. You're probably not playing those in decks that don't give you the higher benefit, even if your opponents are drawing, you know? Like, how often in just a casual red deck are you seeing people do some of these, like, not Wheel of Fortunes that isn't like I'm pinging you for damage as you draw?
Right.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
I play it as strict card draw. If I'm playing a red deck that does not have access to blue for card draw, I'm playing Wheel of Misfortune every time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's what I'm thinking. Like, Wheel of Misfortune is a good include in decks that aren't capitalizing on your opponents drawing lots of cards, right?
Yes.
The difference is like you're playing straight up Wheel of Fortune. You're probably playing a deck that benefits for your opponents drawing cards. Wheel of Misfortune is very good broad stroke because you can get the free refill and not have feel bads across the table.
Yeah.
Very true. We love Wheel of Misfortune here on the Thoughtcast.
We got to get those percentages up. Y'all got to start playing this card.
I'm saying I want to see
Rookie
7%. 7% by the next episode.
Yeah.
Jared, take us away, dude.
Heck yeah. My next one to talk about is Finale of Promise, another red card. Notably, Joseph, I love your list because I play a lot of those cards. But yeah, this Finale
You as
of
well,
Promise.
good sir.
Yes. I love this card. I was talking in our Discord earlier about how much I love Spellslinger, and this is just like you just take Spellslinger and crank it up to 1,000. It's X red for sorcery, and this card allows you to cast one target instant and or target sorcery card from your graveyard with converted mana cost X or less without paying their cost. So you pay the X for the spell, but then you don't have to pay again. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard, you exile it instead. And then if X is 10 or more, you copy each of those spells 2 times. So you're casting 6 spells for free, essentially. That's ludicrous stuff. That is so insane. I don't even need to explain how, like, if Underworld breaches on your field when this is going off, like, that's just crazy stuff. Absolutely mind-boggling things you can do. I have won so many games with this card because they just don't see it coming. Like, my instants are in my graveyard. I've already used them. Boom. I just like blow the table up with this card.
Yeah.
So I have a blast playing it. Notably, it's in 1% of decks. That's a little more understandable because this is on one of those kind of more corner case situations, but most people are playing instants and sorceries. So like this, especially in red, like red plays a lot of instants and sorceries. So this card is pretty good in most red decks. So.
Yeah, I would say if you're playing like 25 plus instants and sorceries in your deck, and you're playing red, you should probably play Finale of Promise.
If you have a Jessica's Will in your deck, you should play Finale of Promise.
Oh, you should.
Because
copying Jessica's Will 3 times.
The sorcery doesn't matter. Like, you can just copy Jessica's Will 3 times and just have a ball. Just go crazy.
Totally.
So I love this card. 1% is too low. John, take it away.
Good stuff. We keep following up right on another. You're talking about a specific subset, and then I've got the next card that rolls right into it.
That's so handy.
We planned this.
We did. What if I told you? Let's clickbait this a little bit. What if I told you there was a blue card that allows you to get at one shot any sorcery you like at instant speed?
I'm listening.
I'm in.
Oh.
I would tell you that's the card Quicken.
Ooh, let's go.
Quicken is a blue for an instant that says the next sorcery you cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash, and it draws a card.
That's
dope.
So cool. I don't think I've ever seen this card.
So like you said, this kind of thing is kind of in the corner case scenario that, like, you probably are going to want to be doing either you're doing cantrippy kind of cards, the low instants and sorceries that are replenishing themselves. You're probably also doing Spellslinger with something like this. But just like, if it doesn't care where that sorcery has come from, if you're playing a deck of some kind that is allowing you to do sorceries like from your hand, or if you're like a flashback deck that has sorcery, or you're doing stuff from exile like Foretell and things like that as well, for one shot of a turn, just holding up one extra mana off turn that also then replenishes itself in your hand if it ends up being a dud, you get to surprise anybody. It's like, think of any sorcery effect that you could do in the game. Control magic, Wrath of God, tutors, things
I'm
of that
thinking board
nature.
wipes. Like this into a board wipe. Like so many board wipes are sorcery speed to help balance them out, but this just, you can hold up anything and draw a card.
And you draw a card, yeah. So even if you've got nothing in your hand, it at least replaces itself, so you get a chance at drawing something.
Can I argue with you real quick?
Go for
Argue
it.
with me all day.
I think if you're going to play Quicken, you should play Born Upon a Wind instead.
Oh,
What's that?
Born Upon a Wind is 1 and a blue for an instant that says you can cast spells this turn as though they had flash, draw a card. So for 1 extra mana, you get access to everything, not just sorceries, and still draw a card. It's only played in 2% of decks. So it still is a card that people should be playing more.
Yeah, Quicken is only in 1%.
Right.
I like them both. I think that here's my take. I like Quicken better right now just because most of the time you're not holding up enough mana on your off turn to like do a bunch of stuff. Like you really know you need a board wipe and this card and you're good to go. And like I would be satisfied with that, and that would be like if I'm holding a Wrath of God, that's 5 mana. But maybe I didn't have a 6 for that other thing. And if I only had 6 mana, then it doesn't matter because I'm not doing anything else. So
does a card like this open you up to getting blown up by a counterspell? Yes, obviously. A lot of Magic is like that. So like you do your Quicken, you put your Sorcerer on the stack, counter. Okay. But you even had the chance to do it, though. Like you said, especially in, like, say, an Azorius control thing of some kind. Hold up the Sorcery Speed Wrath and Quicken in your turn. Do something with your creatures, and then wait to do a Wrath on the off turn if things start going out of control.
And you draw the Force of Will with your Quicken. Ooh. And then their counterspell doesn't matter.
Both Quicken and Born Upon a Wind, you can pitch them to Force of Will, so I'm in.
You can. So play both of them. Pitch one of them to Force of Will. And then win the game.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like it. Just being inherently being able to mess up the timing restrictions on cards is one of the biggest like ooh gotcha moments that you can get, and it's like so satisfying as a Magic player. It's like ooh, I broke the rules. I did a sorcery at instant speed.
So fun.
Dude, that's so true because sorceries are for the most part stronger than instants, just strictly because that's the balancing aspect of making you do it on your turn. So, yeah, getting to sneak a sorcery into someone else's turn will 100% catch the table off guard every time that it happens. So,
sweet.
That's dope. Thanks for turning us onto that card, dude. That's sick.
Well, another blue card, since we're talking about instants and sorceries and, copying things and countering things, let's talk about, I think, this is probably the least played card on my list. It's a card that I have been substituting instead of negate in my decks. Is Split Decision, which is 1 and a blue for an instant with Will of the Council that says choose target instant or sorcery spell. Starting with you, each player votes for denial or duplication. If denial gets more votes or the vote is tied, copy the spell. If denial gets more votes, counter the spell. If duplication gets more votes or the vote is tied, copy the spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So there's a lot of times you're basically making the table decide whether it's worth countering the spell or whether you get a copy of it. So this is also a card that fits into one of my favorite categories, which is scales with the power level that you're playing at. So early on, if somebody's playing a Wrath, you can play Split Decision and go, I would like that spell to be countered. And then the whole table votes on it being countered. If you're playing at higher powers and someone plays Demonic Tutor, you can go, I'm going to play Split Decision and decide that I would like a Demonic Tutor. And then you make them counter their own spell.
You're sick. Playing the mind game.
You're playing 3D chess with Split Decision.
I love this card.
It just creates really good stories too. So same with Wheel of Misfortune, where I just like cards that make really good memories and really good stories that also happen to be very powerful. And Split Decision fits into that category for me. Yeah,
I think I've definitely played against you and you've used this.
Well, Tivit used to be a Vote Matters deck before it was, this is just big, powerful Sphinx man with mustache. But yeah. All right, that was Split Decision. Jarrett, take us away.
Alrighty. My next card that you guys are going to hear me talk about is a card that is somehow played in 0% of decks. I don't understand that math because I play this card, so that's not true. But 0% of a number, the numbers that it's calculating this against are so large that
it's low.
it's all intents and purposes, it's 0%.
While you're talking, I'm going to pull up a calculator to get the actual percentage.
I would love this. Okay, so this card is called Fork. It's really freaking old. This card is really ancient. It is only played in 8,696 decks. That is a tiny number. That is so small. 0% of a number that is really large, 1,824,939 decks that are not playing it. So for those of you who do not know what Fork does, it's like the OG.
It's 0.004%.
That's brutal. That's rough. Guys,
Yes.
This card is really, really good for all of you people playing red. And like, I don't know why. I just don't know why this card isn't getting played more. This is a functional counterspell in red.
I can probably tell you why it's not being played.
I would
I
love
can
to
tell
hear
you
it,
as well.
but I'll get there. So I'll read it off first. It's 2 red for an interrupt. That's all this card is. It's an instant. Any one sorcery or instant spell just cast is duplicated. I'm reading the old text, by the way. Treat Fork as an exact copy of target spell, except that Fork remains red. Caster of Fork chooses the copy's target. So, John, tell me your thoughts on this card, and I'll tell you mine.
Well, because it's probably not being played because it's old and completely out of print.
That's fair. It is kind of expensive. It
Yes.
notably is, according to EDH Rec, it's $30, $29.99, $30.
It's also on the reserve list.
That's true.
However, Reverberate is a functional reprint that's red, instant, copy target, instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So it's the same thing. It's $1.31, and it's in 3% of decks that can play it. So when you combine those two together, you're still at 3% of decks are playing some type of a Fork variant. If you're looking to play one, play Reverberate instead, because Fork is reserved list and is way too expensive.
That's fair. Does Reverberate allow you to copy someone else's spells, or is it just your
Here it is. It's exactly the same spell.
Oh, it's exactly the same. Okay, so Reverberate, Fork, they're the same card.
Yes.
They're
They actually,
both.
a little bit of trivia, Wizards got in trouble a little bit when they printed Reverberate because it is a functional reprint of a card on the reserve list, which brings down the value of a reserve list card, which goes against the contract that they signed for the reserve list. So Reverberate is the only time that they have done a functional reprint of something on the reserve list.
Wow. So the more you know. That's how good this card is. You guys should play it. It's abomination that it's in 0% of decks. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, you can use it as a counterspell. That's true.
You
someone
play
is
it
going, well,
in
you
response,
can,
and
you can use
copy
it
the
as something that
counterspell.
says counter target counterspell.
Yes.
Because you can Reverberate or Fork the counterspell and then have your copy target the original counterspell.
Yes. So yeah, that's a way around countering spells in red. It also is just like someone plays something cool, you get to play that too.
Sweet.
That's literally what this card does.
Yeah.
Or if you have a Finale of Devastation that you want to copy.
Oh,
Finale of Devastation for X equals 10, copy it.
that's too mathy for me.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff I like doing.
Magecraft.
So yeah, it's so sick. It's so fun. This is an abomination. I can't believe between two cards that are the same,
3%.
it's in 3% of decks. That's ridiculous. Get
Wild.
good. Play Fork. Play Reverberate.
Good
I need that on the
stuff.
shirt. Get good, play Fork.
Get good. Play Fork. On that note, John, you should take us away. Take us down a different path.
Well,
Fork in the road. I'm trying to segue and I'm failing.
do you need a spell to fork?
Oh,
Are you
better.
looking to fork something real good?
These segues are giving me life.
I tell you what, I've got an interesting one. This one is kind of like it's more probably going to be on the narrow because of how the ability on the card works. You are stuck to playing it in a 2-color deck that is specifically these 2 colors. But I think if you have this is a very good include in decks that are able to run it. This is a sorcery called Dig Up. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Crimson Vow had the cards with Cleave. I don't think it was a Midnight Hunt. Yeah, Crimson Vow. They had this weird mechanic that cards were printed that had abilities on them, but certain words were in square brackets. And your spell could either be cast normal as is, or if you paid the cost for Cleave, anything that was written in brackets was removed from the card. So you essentially had a weird way to do like split cards that did a thing and then did a thing functionally better.
It's just
What'd you say?
It's
It cut you
just
off.
kicker.
It's just kicker. Everything's kicker. But no, I
popped
really
off when they did kicker.
Ward
Yeah,
is just reverse kicker.
Anyway, John, dig up.
Sorry.
But this card is really good. So if you cast it normally for green, it says you search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. If you do the cleave cost on this card, which is 1 black, and a green, it removes the text of basic land and reveal. So what it reads then at that point is search your library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle. So
better than every tutor ever because they make you reveal it or put it on top of your library.
Not the black
Well,
one,
it's
but
it's
diabolic tutor.
Yeah, the cost is diabolic tutor. Correct. Yeah. So if you do it as just the green, you get a land tutor, which I've said before that like the green sort of ramp spells that we use in Commander nowadays, all of that kind of stuff is really good and should be played, don't get me wrong. But sometimes you just need those little 1-mana ones that say you just go and get a basic land or a land within a specific parameter, like a gate or a desert or a snow or something like that, and just put it into your hand. Right? What good are your ramp spells if you can't get to the colors you need to cast those ramp spells?
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 100% of decks that can play this should be playing it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because the issue with running Diabolic Tutor is it's always a 4-mana sorcery. You have no extra value from it. But again, going back to modal spells are the future, Dig Up is a secret modal spell.
Yeah, all of these are pretty darn good. Some of them even have some very cool like interaction with the game if you choose to not do them by their cleave costs. So sometimes they're just undercosted in such a way that can be very practical to use not on the cleave cost, but the fact that they have that ability that can change their text on what they do, very cool. Versatility on all of your cards is super. Again, you're stuck to Golgari colors if you want to play this kind of thing, but you probably want a card like this anyways.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
Already. I
Joseph,
love this.
hit it.
My turn? All
Go
right,
for it.
So I'm going to break the segue cycle and talk about something completely different. So the next card I'm going to talk about, I have just started. This has become an auto include for me in white decks, and it's Surge of Salvation. It's a single white mana for an instant that says you and permanents you control gain hexproof until the end of your turn. That alone is so good. And then it has this extra text of prevent all damage that black and or red sources would deal to creatures you control this turn. So it does so much for a single white of giving you and all of your permanents, your lands, your planeswalkers, everything gets hexproof. So it's a counter spell in white if someone's trying to target something of yours. And then you can just get people who are swinging at you with red or black creatures by going, those creatures are fogged this turn. Also, my stuff is hexproof. I can just block and kill all of your creatures that are swinging at me.
That's
for a
awesome.
single white mana. It's in 2% of decks that could play it. And
I'm gonna get this card.
Dude, I've yet to find a scenario where it has not been unbelievable when I've played it.
Could you imagine the back blowout of somebody trying to hit you with a Blasphemous Act?
Yes.
I'm imagining my Toroff deck trying to like win the game, and then you're just like,
Yep.
I'll just be
Surge.
around next turn.
Yeah. Dude,
Like,
John, you're so right. It completely blanks Blasphemous Act. You can also, I play a lot of Boros decks. You can play this in response. Yeah, you can play this in response to your Blasphemous Act and save your board. So you're at 2 mana, wipe the board, mine's saved.
Bro. This is a good
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. This card sneaked in because it's an uncommon from, what is that? March of the Machine? It sneaked so far under the radar for everybody that it's only in 2% of decks that can play it. But I want to play it in every white deck.
That is so crazy. I'm glad that you told me about this card because I didn't know.
Start playing Surge of Salvation.
Wow.
Take us away, Jared.
All right. Let's see here. What do we got? Some of you might have heard of this card, but not a lot of you are playing it. Only 2% of you are playing it in 1,231,234 decks. So not good enough. It's an X green spell, Green Sun's Twilight sorcery. Reveal the top X plus 1 cards of your library. Choose a creature card and or land card from among them. Put those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is 5 or more, put them on the battlefield instead. And then the rest go on the bottom in a random order. This card is just dope. Like, it's really, really good. It's not nearly as expensive as Green Sun's Zenith. I forget what the cost of that card is, but this card is only 50 cents. So, yeah, if cost is your prohibiting factor, that's not a real excuse. So, this card is just great. It should probably be
They're not
a
even
lot more
similar
decks.
cards, Twilight and Zenith. They're not even remotely similar cards.
Very, very different. So yeah, if you're looking at like those two as similar options of play, they're just a completely different play experience. So this is like less of a tutor situation and more of a just like see what's on the top of your deck and get something good. This is typically a less threatening and more of a feel good for the whole table because it just feels less bad than just going and getting whatever you want out of your library. So great card though. Yeah, I honestly should play this more than I do.
A very good one to play around with if your deck is utilizing like top of library manipulation.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean? Go scroll rack, put your stuff back on top. Twilight, put like 18 mana values of stuff into play or whatever. I don't know.
It's pretty tight. It's pretty good.
So good. Well, Twilight only gets 1 creature and 1 land.
Yeah,
it's all right. You know what I meant. That kind of thing.
But I would say, would you cast this for X equals less than 5? Do you feel like that's even worth it? Put those cards into your hand. So at X equals 4, you dig 5 cards deep and get a creature and a land into your hand.
If you knew you didn't like the top other 3 cards, because those are going on the bottom of your library after this card resolves. If you know you need one of them and you don't want the other 3, you can put them all on the bottom and do something like that. You have access to cards like Abundance in green, so you can have a lot of card selection off the top of your library, or things like Sensei's Top or Scroll Rack. That can get pretty cool. Maybe there's a cool green deck with top deck manipulation. I've never seen that.
It's Takasha.
Oh, it's Takasha?
Takasha Dig Site Mentor.
Oh,
that deck is so top decky.
That's sick. I play this card specifically in my Gargo, the Watcher deck, because it's a budget pick, and it's really good. So,
John, I know you play this too.
Yeah, I've got it in Thali on the Gitrog.
You pulled that out the other night.
I did. It was
kind of Green Sun's Twilighted.
Yeah. No, it's a great card because it's like, if under the X5 value, it can help you do a little bit of catch up if you end up falling behind briefly. So like if you have some mana but not quite enough to get there, you can do like, an X of 3, it'll go 3 cards plus 1, and if I get at least a land among that, then great, you're happy, get something into your hand.
Yeah.
And you may also just incidentally get a creature out of that as well.
Well, you couldn't even do X equals 2 because it's X plus 1, so it's even cheaper. So that's 3 mana, draw 2 cards.
1 mana, maybe draw a card.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not a bad rate at all.
I've done that. I've done Green Sun X1 and got that land right off the top I needed.
Hey, that's amazing.
It happened.
Cool.
It happened.
If you guys want to do Green Sun X1, get the land off the top, you got to play the card first. So put the card in the deck. John, you should take it next.
Lovely, lovely. All right. I've got a real good one here for you. What if I told you, again, we're back to the...
I like this.
We're back.
Hypotheticals.
Strap in, boys. Hypothetical. Here we go. What if I told you that there was a 1 mana enchantment that is the strongest thing in what it does, both for and against the strategy you'd play it for?
I'm intrigued.
You're intrigued? Can I talk to you? Can I talk to you about telepathy?
Oh, shoot. Not where I thought you were going.
Telepathy is a single blue for an enchantment that says your opponents play with their hands revealed. That's it. So,
that's some crazy mind games.
Are you sick of getting all of your spells blown out by counter magic you never saw coming? Fantastic. Play telepathy. Your opponents are now always going to have their hands open. You'll know exactly what's coming when because you get to see everybody's play pattern for the rest of the game. Conversely, Are you the control player and don't want anybody to know about the counterspells you have coming and know exactly what they have to know exactly what to counter? Play telepathy. You then get to see everything that's coming and you get to know exactly what you should counter when.
Oh, yeah, because the strategy in playing against a control deck is to play bait spells. Like, oh, I'm going to play this and make it seem like it's the best thing I can do, get it countered, and then slam something huge after it. So, like,
exactly.
you can't bluff anymore. I mean, knowledge is power. Like, not the card knowledge is power, but in a metaphorical sense, I would say that knowledge is power.
I've never played with this card on the field before, but I can't, like, this has got to change the game completely.
It would like ruin my day to just sit there with I would feel so violated.
That's probably why people don't play something like this here, because it just feels like it's one of those ones that can make people feel a little salty about like not having their grip in their hand and having their entire game plan. But I feel a card like this should be evaluated in a different case scenario. Be the person that plays telepathy and make sure that everybody is making correct political threat assessments, right?
Yeah.
It's
such a good policy card. Like, hey, you see that player, you should use it.
Yeah, you see that player C is about to fire off a Green Sun's Twilight for X of 7, and you don't have the counter magic, and you see player A does, just, try to convince them, be like, hey, look, there's a big X spell that's going to be coming later on. Let me help you get cards. You know what I mean? Play it in a control shell.
Turn order becomes so important with this card on the field too, because you can't bluff anymore about priority. Like if it's somebody's trying to resolve something.
Again, your opponents can't bluff. You absolutely can, because this says opponents play with their hands revealed. You get to sit there with a full fan, and you get to watch as everybody struggles and watching what everybody else begins drawing for the rest of the game until telepathy is eventually blown up.
What I think would be really funny is like to play this card and then start a timer and see how long it takes for your opponents to realize that this card is a humongous problem, even though it's not actually like a stacks piece or like it doesn't actually prohibit them from doing anything.
It doesn't actually do anything.
This is literally like you're just pantsing your opponents.
Yeah,
there's making them sit there and they're
there's never been a more paradoxical card. It sits there and does nothing, yet you get to play it, and you're in charge of everything.
And no one wants to remove it because it's only a 1 mana enchantment that doesn't actually do anything. But
no one's going to use removal on telepathy.
But it will generate so much value for you because you're just going to know everything.
John, I wasn't on board when I saw your list, but I'm very much on board now.
I kind of love this card. I love it.
Oh, man.
It's so good. Actually, take it.
I do have a segue. I have a 1 mana card that deals with telepathy without having to target it.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Dude, I'm going to talk about Pick Your Poison.
Nope. Didn't get that. I was looking at
where you thought
it
was list. But anyway, Pick Your Poison is a 1 mana sorcery from Murders at Karlov Manor that says choose one. It's a modal spell. Choose one. Each opponent sacks an artifact, each opponent sacks an enchantment, or each opponent sacks a creature with flying. So this, as compared to playing something like Naturalize, which just says destroy target artifact or enchantment, what I like about Pick Your Poison is it's a single mana and makes each opponent do something. So like if you go turn 1, Wild Growth, and John goes turn 1 Telepathy, and then I go turn 1 Pick Your Poison, each of you sack an enchantment, I've gotten rid of something on both of your boards that is trivial. Like it's been 1 mana for me, and I've set you both back on the thing that you decided to do. Also, Pick Your Poison snipes Soul Rings so unbelievably well. By just again, we've talked about this before of the actual incorrect play of going turn 1 land Soul Ring pass. That is an incorrect play.
That will lose you the game 80% of the time.
There are corner cases, I would say. There's less cases where you should do that than ones that you shouldn't. Where if you're setting up for I need to play something that costs 4 mana on turn 2, then definitely do it. But if you don't have a follow-up play or you don't have a plan with your turn 1 Soul Ring, it probably will lose you the game. And a way to punish people for that is by playing Pick Your Poison and just going okay, everyone's played God forbid that someone has played one of the artifact lands. Like they play like Spirebluff Bridge or something, and someone else has played a Soul Ring, and you just go, everyone sacks an artifact.
Oh God.
It's so cool, and it's only being played in 1% of decks, and I'm sure that's because it's a brand new card. But I would like to see this more often because it's such an interactive piece. It gets worse as the game goes on, obviously, as any of these like edict effects do. But like the times where you get to cast it early enough in the game, and especially with enchantments, I would say, where most people aren't playing a ton of enchantments in their deck. This snipes Rhystic Study. Like, you can pay your tax for it, then have a 2 mana. This gets rid of Rhystic Study, probably. Like, there's a lot of caveats to this card, but I think the times where it's good outweighs the times that it's bad.
Also, the fact that it makes them sacrifice, doesn't target, and gets around destroying, it gets around hexproof,
Totally.
It gets around indestructible. It literally bypasses everything else for 1 mana. That's crazy.
Also, like, you can just choose to make them sacrifice a creature with flying. Like, are you playing against an Atraxa deck? Do you want to get rid of Atraxa for 1 mana?
Dude,
Yes.
that's awesome.
That's
also enough
like,
of a reason for me to just include this now.
Exactly. I've started including this in most of my green decks where I'm looking for a piece of interaction. Pick Your Poison has kind of risen in the ranks for me of cards to be playing in that slot. Gerard?
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's see what I got here. This is a pet card of mine, which is why I included it.
I just saw you click on it.
I don't think people actually should play this unless they have a real reason to. I love this card because
I actually like your reasons to play this, though.
Thanks. So I'm going to talk about Mana Flare. It's 2 and a red for an enchantment. It says whenever a player taps a land for mana, it produces 1 additional mana of the same type. So if you tap a mountain, you get 2 red mana, so and so on. So I love this card because it just juices games up. Like, it takes it from like 0 to 100 on turn 3. And that's dope because all of a sudden everyone
Don't play this on turn 3.
No, don't. Because
I think
then everyone else has 6 mana, and then you have to wait until your next turn to have 7. It's horrible
turn
if you
3
do that.
Mana Flare pass is one of the worst turns that you can make.
You have to either be an absolute psycho with balls of steel to do that, or like just intend to lose the game.
John's out here Mana Flaring on turn 3.
Hey,
Not Mana Flare per se, but I have the green version of this called Heartbeat of Spring, and I play this in my Shrines deck for the reason of just like boosting up that mana super fast, and it's an enchantment.
I like this card a lot. Red, I've used this card in my mono red decks because there is just like a serious lack of ramp in red. Yeah. And this is a way to kind of circumvent the problem of not having enough ramp. I also play things like Goblet of Power in there because the same thing. But this one's a little bit better because it's on an earlier turn. So actually,
yes,
it kind of fits into the ramp slot in a lot better of a way than things like the more expensive mana doublers do. Green has a lot more access to cheaper mana doublers. I wouldn't consider even playing things like Nyx Plume Ancient because I don't need to triple my mana by the time I have enough mana to play that card. Like, that's a little bit overkill. That is a win more card, but Mana Flare is not.
Reanimation target.
It is a reanimation target, so you can entomb it, then reanimate it. Boom. Turn 2, Nyx Plume Ancient. That's never bad. But anyway,
Nyx
we're talking
Plume
about Mana
Ancient
Flare.
is a very close friend of Slimefoot and Squee.
Oh, do you run that in there?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Mana Flare. It's just a fun card. Like, this is objectively not a good card. I actually agree with the 1% on this one because there's just not a lot of cases where you benefit more from the access to more mana than. It's the same thing as like wheels. It's like when you wheel, you give everyone else card advantage. When you're drawing the cards too, this is the same thing. It's symmetrical. Everyone gets to have advantage from this. And unfortunately, they're going to get advantage before you do because you have to play it and then untap with it. So just keep that in mind. But every time I play this card, I have never regretted it. It has just always led to like an absolute chaotic game because the thing is, none of your opponents are expecting to have double the mana on the next turn after you play this. So things just go crazy, and not necessarily in a bad way, because everyone is on the same playing field. They're all getting the same power spike. Everyone has the tools they need to kind of balance each other out. So I think it's a really fun card. If you like to speed up your games, this is definitely a way to do it.
Yes.
John, you want to take the next one?
Oh, that's me. All right. Let's talk about a fun little equipment that's going to help all of your combat decks do the thing that it's looking to do twice as good. Or not necessarily twice as good, not, you know what I mean? Like they're going to be more effective in what they do. Again,
it
going
will be
back
8% better than it was before.
At least 2% better. But we were talking about earlier, we said how, like, we're in a very modern age on how commander decks are built. We've even seen this with things like our recent collection of pre-constructed decks. The card choice in them may not be spectacular, but how many non-basic lands come in precons now?
Yep.
You've got, like, basics. How many come in there now? Like maybe 5 or 6 of each color, depending on what colors the deck is. The good ones.
Between the Lord of the Rings and the Doctor Who commander decks, some of them only had like 4 basics in it.
Exactly. So we're in a very modern age where dual lands, non-basic dual lands are the standard on how to build commander decks. You can't just do 3-color decks anymore that are just an Evolving Wilds, a Terramorphic Expanse, a Command Tower, and 27 basics. You can't really do that anymore. Exactly. And how do you capitalize then on everybody who is using these non-basic lands? And
we'll say it together. 1, 2, 3. Price of Progress. Sorry, go ahead, John. Were you not going to say that?
No, I wasn't going to do. I'm sorry. You're good. We're good. That was really funny. No, how about a Price of Progress? How about instead some boots? Not the boots you're thinking of.
To wade through the aftermath of the Price of Progress joke that he just made.
Exactly. This is called Trailblazers Boots. This is a 2-mana artifact equipment. It gives equipped creature non-basic land walk, and it equips for 2. So it does not give a power boost, but if you're doing any kind of combat strategy or an equipment strategy that you're trying to get a big suited up guy through really, really fast, anything like that, you playing any legendary creature that does an effect that says when it attacks or deals combat damage, or even not even necessarily a legendary creature, you've got any of those, like, say, Titans or anything that we play nowadays that says it does its thing when it attacks or deals combat damage, anything like that. Everybody is bound to have at least one non-basic land. You might come into a corner case scenario where somebody is playing a monocolor, then it's bad.
Dude,
but
even then, monocolor decks don't play only basics.
Yeah,
Monocolor
exactly.
decks are the perfect place to play utility lands.
Mm-hmm. And then,
you're gonna get my War Room,
Exactly. Yes. Anything above 2 then as well. You've got everybody who's doing Command Tower and Reliquary Towers and Guild Gates and Snarls and Ravnica Bounces, all that kind of stuff. Everybody plays non-basics. So allowing your combat strategy deck to be able to just slide under the radar at anybody you need to, that is one of the biggest deterrents that keeps combat-focused decks from doing the things that's looking to do, especially against ones that are green, that are able to ramp out and get all this excess of lands that can put bigger threats than your equipped thing down into play. You just sneak your way right through. And there's a lot of equipments that go into this kind of subcategory as well. All of them, I think, are very good in here as well. You've got, obviously, Trailblazers Boots.
Trailblazers Boots.
Trailblazers Boots for non-basic land walk. But this also is kind of like a subcategory for things like Whisper Silk Cloak and Prowler's Helm and any other equipment that gives evasion. I guess if you're really daring, you could go Hot Soup, but I don't recommend that one.
No.
Wait.
But Trailblazers, you've never heard of Hot Soup?
No.
My boy's about to be looking up Hot Soup right now.
Single mana equipment, equips a creature. It's unblockable, but when the equipped creature is dealt damage, you have to sacrifice it.
Oh,
Oh,
That's really funny.
it's risky. It's high risk, high reward. But
Yeah.
Trailblazers Boots is very good in this as well because again, this is a modern age of Magic where everybody is playing on non-basic land. So if you need to get your guy through, strap him on a nice pair of Yeezys.
yep.
Oh,
I like
there you
it.
go.
We don't talk about Yeezys anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately. Sorry, Kanye.
All right.
Instead, I will talk about one of my favorite targeted removal spells. Since John, you started with yours, as we're starting to wrap up here, I'll talk about one of mine, which is Bone Shards. I feel like more decks should certainly be playing Bone Shards. If we're talking about the age of modern Magic, it's where I would say that it's defined by utility. So especially if you're playing black, there's going to be so many times where having things in your graveyard is useful. Or sacrificing a creature is useful. Like that's kind of what black does, is fill the graveyard, sacrifice creatures. That's what my black decks do for the most part. So Bone Shards is a single black mana, and it has the same text as Hero's Downfall, except it says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a creature or discard a card, which sounds like downside. And it is, you're technically 2 for 1ing yourself in all of these scenarios. But you're actually, it is not a bug, it's a feature. So in things like Limefoot and Squee, sacrificing a creature or discarding a card are the 2 things I want to be doing in that deck. Because it puts your Nyxbloom Ancient into the graveyard to reanimate later. Or it sacrifices Limefoot and Squee to put him into the graveyard to start reanimating things. Like, Bone Shards is such a glue piece that I almost would play a card that just said single black mana, discard a card or sacrifice a creature. I almost would play that. So having the utility of destroy a creature or a planeswalker on that for a single black mana.
I mean, you play Entomb, right?
Well, Entomb's a little different, but yeah, I'm looking for ways to get things in my graveyard in most of my black decks. So I'm always happy to see Bone Shards when it shows up in my hand. And I think more than 2% of decks should be playing it.
I think so too. I love that card every time I resolve it in Shirei. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. In anything where you're recurring creatures, it just becomes free value. It's free real estate.
It's free. Speaking of free real estate, I don't know. That's not a real segue into this because it doesn't actually work.
Make it work. But make it improv, dude. Figure it out.
No.
All right, talk about the
card. This is a card called Relic of Legends. It's 3 generic mana for an artifact. I wish I had figured out a segue for this, but impossible, alas.
The percentage on this card is insanely low.
I cannot believe it. This is one of those cards that I had to double take multiple times and check, be how is this card not played more? This is just crazy. So what this card does, tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So it's already on par with a Chromatic Lantern situation. But it does this really awesome thing where it makes all of your legendary creatures a mana dork now. It says tap and untap legendary creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. Notably, this doesn't care about summoning sickness either. This card allows you to tap them for mana. So it gets around that. This card is awesome because Commander is essentially legendary creature.
Dude.
The deck,
yes, almost every set that's come out in the last year has secretly been Commander Legends.
Yeah, there are some decks where I have just a handful of non-legendary creatures. Almost all the creatures are legendary because most of the creatures now in Commander, they have to come in with a lot of things they can do or value that they bring to the table. So you're not just playing normal stuff anymore. And this, I notably play it in Ramos, and most of the creatures in that deck are legendary creatures. And it does work. I also play this in pretty much every arena deck I have, and it just absolutely crushes every single time. Just so much value. This is a mana rock that is actually worth paying 3 mana for. Yes. I don't like playing 3 mana rocks, but this one is actually worth it. It's really, really good. What do you guys think about Relic of Legends?
Slamming.
Slam in. Joseph, you turned me on to this card. I didn't know this card existed until you put it on my radar.
Why did I tell you about this card? You were playing a deck that cared about legendary creatures?
I think it's when we were building Ramos. I had come to you with my first draft. And
I was like, hey, every creature in this deck is legendary. You should probably be playing Relic of Legends.
I'm not 100% how that conversation went, but that seems like a viable way that conversation went. So,
I mean, I feel like I've looked up, and in most of my decks, if I'm running 26 creatures, 18 of them are legendary.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's more than half
where we're at.
So Relic of Legends could go in theoretically every deck that I have, and it would be a good card.
Like a worst case scenario, it's Manalith.
Yes, its failsafe is a totally fine card.
Yep. And it's only in 2% decks right now. So
that's
it's an artifact, which is also makes
you can play it in
insane.
Every deck.
It's every deck.
It's in 2% of 3 million decks.
Y'all are out here playing 5-color decks without this card.
Oh, yeah.
You're crazy. This is wild.
Heinous
setting
behavior.
yourself back. John, what's a card that you're interested in talking about right now?
Oh, let's see. Let's bring it home then with a favorite of mine for an enchantment. This is a very fun one I run in my it's not stacks, I promise.
It's a stacks card. Prepare your heart.
It's a stacks card. Very hard. No, I mean, it reads as stacks, but it also is a very good card to help buffer you out as life total and allow a slower build to keep on pace with something that is running faster. Because not every deck is running the capability of speedy haste creatures or fast infinite creature combos and things like that. Some decks run a little bit of slower pace to them. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to bring up Authority of the Consuls. A single white mana for an enchantment is going to read like a Soul Warden, sort of. When a creature of... Let me try that again. Creatures opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, and when a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. So that is a blend of like the tap ability on Blind Obedience and the life gain of Soul Warden. And what this can accomplish for you in a deck is allowing you, even early or mid-game or something to that degree, you're up against anybody that is swarming down lots of token creatures, or you're up against a deck that is running like maximum haste. Having creatures come in tapped is just a haste hoser. It doesn't matter how many versions of like Urbrasks and Rhythm of the Wilds and things like that they are running. If they come in tapped, there's nothing they can do about it, and that keeps your life total high until you can set up some other kind of defensive barrier or a combo or a wrath of some capacity, buffers out your life total, and keeps decks that are doing haste in check.
This also helps too with like Perforos, like God of the Forge type stuff, where like creature ETBs equal damage to opponents. You're just you're taking less damage from that type of stuff, or none at all, which is always good. And it's 1 white for this. I have played this on turn 1 so many times.
This awesome. Kind of card doesn't even necessarily need to be thrown specifically into a life gain shell. You have anything with white that is running a bit slower, and you have a group that can play like in other non-white colors that are powering out creatures really, really fast. Just use this. This it's about as cheap as you can get for an effect that has creatures come into play tapped, and it also just incidentally keeps your life total higher. Then it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to be able to set up a win. This card is played, it's one of the higher ones up here on my list as far as its percentage. It is still 5%, though. 5% is still lower. Because this kind of card is definitely utilized most in a life gain shell, since, like a lot of life gain cards, every single trigger of a creature coming into play is 1 single ping of life. So anything that cares on your board about gaining life, this is 1 after another, after another, after another. That's really good. This card has also crept up in price like a little bit. I just checked it. It's about $15 now. So this one's not necessarily a budget option anymore. But if you have the means of acquiring one of them, this is something that could be very, very useful. Like, again, in Modern Magic, where people actively now, like, back when I first started playing Commander, no one was running Concordant Crossroads because it was just a card that no one could acquire anymore. Now we've had 2 printings of it in the last 5 months. So yeah. Concordant Crossroads and Mass Hysteria, same thing. Like, people are running mass haste enablers now. So something like this can help really slow down those decks and keep you alive long enough to stabilize and pull out a win.
Love it.
This card is awesome.
So good, dude. Well, I'll wrap up my list with a red counterspell, as Jared likes to call it. So I'm going to talk about Bolt Bend as my last card. It's played in 3% of decks that could play it right now.
If you didn't pick it, I was going to pick it.
It's only 3%, really?
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Could play it.
Huh.
I think if you're playing a commander that has power 4 or greater, it's an auto include. That's in red, obviously. But so it's 3 in a red for an instant that says change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. These are very powerful effects, things like deflecting swat, things like that. I would actually say that this is a budget replacement for deflecting swat. So the spell costs 3 less if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So I started playing this card when my Boros Blink deck was Abdel Adrian, which is a 4/4. Because that deck needs a lot of counterspells, and it's Boros, so it was bad. But I just realized how often this turned into, like, I'm gonna like counter targeted removal, where like they go to, you know, especially if it's something like Bone Shards, where there's an additional cost or there's a discard or a sacrifice or whatever on top of it, and you can just go, hey, I'm actually going to kill one of your other creatures instead of that.
Yeah.
And like, God forbid you're playing in a higher power, like, pod, and someone plays like a Time Warp that's like target player takes an extra turn, and you're just like, Bolt Bend, my extra turn now.
Y'all are sleeping on these red, like, redirect cards.
Honestly, redirect cards
insane.
are so cool. It's one of the cooler things that red can do, I think.
Yes. It's
John,
like,
I feel like
you
have a
get
thought.
to steal the thing that your opponent's doing.
It's super cool, yeah. Just the fact on the card is as well that it doesn't, the cost isn't modified if whatever is coming targeted at your creature. It doesn't care if the creature that is being targeted is the one that has power 4 or greater. If anything on your board is getting hit with that, if you control at least a creature with power 4 or greater, you can save anything on your battlefield. That's great.
Yeah. Single red mana for Bolt Bend. Also, like, this can redirect auras. Like, if somebody is playing an aura on their creature, you can redirect it to one of yours because it's a spell with a target. So
that's a new way to play that I've never thought of. The more that you dig
into this kind of card, it just gets cooler and cooler. Play more of it. More than 3% of decks should be playing Bolt Bend.
Well,
what percent of decks are playing Deflecting Swat?
I wonder.
Because that's how many should be playing. 15% of decks that could play it are playing Deflecting Swat. Bolt Bend should be way higher.
So here's the thing. I feel like if you can use a Deflecting Swat, you also need this card too. Like,
right, because Deflecting Swat costs 3 without your commander. So like, if you have your commander and its power costs 4, then the difference between Deflecting Swat and Bolt Bend is 1 mana.
I run Bolt Bend, Deflecting Swat, Reverberate, Fork, and the other, there's like 2 more. I can't even remember what they're called. They are all in my Torolf deck. Because red is like, you got to struggle to get where you need to go, and you got to do it in a weird way.
Red is the struggle path.
Literally, if you want to play Magic on hard mode, play red. But it's also the most fun. So,
Jared,
Deflecting Swat,
start landing the plane for me.
All right, you want me to talk about my last pick?
Talk about it, dude.
All right, this is one I've been enjoying a lot on Arena. Actually, I don't own this card in person, but I would play it if I did. So. Let's talk about Skullspore Nexus. It's 6 green for a legendary artifact. It's expensive, but as far as mana cost, it's kind of pricey too card wise. It's around $10. So it's currently played in 5% of decks that could play it. And notably, that the number of decks that can play this card It's pretty low comparatively to some of the other numbers I've seen. Most of the other numbers are like over 1 million. This one is only 516,000, 477 decks total. So significantly lower amount of decks that can play this. But let me get to the effect of this card. So this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You're in green already, so this card is practically going to be 2 mana every time you cast it. Or at least that's the case for me. 99% of the time, it's a 2 mana enchantment. That is absolutely amazing. So, thank you. In my head, this feels like an enchantment, so that's why I keep saying that.
It feels real enchanty.
It's for sure an artifact. So the next part of it is whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, create a green fungus dinosaur creature token with base power and toughness, each equal to the total power of those creatures. So you just like replace your board with a dinosaur token if someone tries to take anything off of it. So you become so dangerous to swing into. No one wants to block your stuff. No one wants to use targeted removal until they can remove this.
Dude, even into a board wipe, because it gets the total. The fungus dinosaur has total power and toughness equal to the total power of the creatures that died on.
I've had this happen. I played this in my Ashaya deck on Arena. People will board wipe me because it makes a huge board presence, and then I'll just get like a 256 dinosaur token, and then they're like they scoop on the next turn because they just didn't realize it would work like that. But I'm not even done. This thing can do more. So you can pay 2 and tap it to double target creature's power until end of turn. So it's a combat trick stapled onto this artifact that people will 100% forget is there and just let you hit them with this.
And then, boop.
And then they just die. Like if you, in my Ashaya deck, like for those of you who don't know, Ashaya is a 5/5 green creature that also gains power and toughness equal to the number of force on your board. And it also turns...
Skullspore Nexus costs 3 in that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah. And so he easily, like Ashaya gets way up there in power. And then you just double it and you smack someone and they just die. It's really crazy. This card's really good.
I love it.
I don't know how I've never seen anyone play this card in person.
I know that both Swiss and Dustin in our Discord are both big fans of this one. So shout out them.
This is probably in Dinosaurs and Minximbu, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Yeah.
It makes Dinosaurs, so Swiss is going to play it.
Yeah. The great spot for a dinosaur deck. Or honestly, anything that creates a board state, this is just a way to keep your board state around.
John, wrap us up here, buddy.
Oh, do I get the last card?
You do.
All right.
Number 20.
What better way to end out a countdown than your goofy honorable mention, if you will, the bottom of the barrel, if you will. And you've all left this on me to pick the last one here. You have made a mistake.
I like it.
Y'all, let's dive into Unfinity because I can't get enough of silver border sets, and y'all are sleeping on the playable cards from Unfinity.
So I need you to convince me and Jared on this one.
All right, I need to convince you on Embiggen. All right, let's talk about Embiggen. Like, is the card good? No, of course not. Right? Giant Growth just doesn't do it really in Commander anymore. But this can be more than Giant Growth. And if you're playing any kind of commander of any kind that wants to be targeted by a spell or wants to get its power up to a particular high number, and you've got get back to modern Magic again, right? Like, how many legendary creatures can you think of offhand that have at least like 2 types in its name? Most cards are like that.
Creature, and then if it has 2 card types, this is strictly better Giant Growth.
All right, I should read the card to clarify what we mean by this. Embiggen is a single green for an instant that says, until end of turn, a target non-brushwag gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each super type, card type, and creature type it has. What that means is that...
Not convinced.
What that means is that it will look at the type line of the card. If you have something that says it's a legendary creature, human warrior.
Sky
That
turtle.
is
I'm sorry.
guys. Yeah, enchantment creature turtle. That's 3 right there.
Yes.
So certainly the floor of this is giant growth. Like very reasonably, you can find something on your board that is a creature and maybe 2 subtypes. Is the lower end of this really, really bad? Yes, because you might just have something like creature, human. Oh well, that sucks. But most legendary creatures nowadays have, again, at minimum right there, legendary and creature. So if you're playing anything that has 2 other types within its name, like human warrior or Phyrexian angel horror or something to that degree.
Or frog spirit elemental.
Frog spirit elemental, exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you know what card that is, John? I'm going to test your oracleness right now.
frog spirit elemental. Is it a card from recent years?
Yes.
Is it?
It's legendary creature, frog spirit elemental.
Oh shoot! I think I know.
3, 2, 1. It's Yargle and Multani.
Oh no, I did not know that.
Oh, the spirit threw me off with Multani. I knew a Multani was an elemental, but
Out of curiosity, John, what did you think it was?
I have no idea. Maybe again something Get Roggy. I don't know.
I thought it was Thrun, Breaker of Silence.
I believe that's an ape.
It's a troll.
He's a troll.
Come
But
on.
the art.
Anyway, Embiggen.
It's a
Yeah.
frog.
Thrun's a very good, actually, like, Thrun Breaker of Silence is actually a very good choice in something like that as well. That's a mono green deck that really wants his power. Like, Embiggen is probably only gonna be, this is a niche scenario card here. This is only really probably gonna be used for a deck that is very focused on getting a particular creature's power and toughness up really, really high for something like fighting abilities or trample combat damage or just being targeted. Anything with like heroic or anything that says that the creature does a thing when it becomes a target of a spell of some kind. Like there's a lot of stuff that's like that. Yes,
This is
this
a great card in Gargo the Watcher, my budget deck.
Yeah, Gargo the Watcher.
It's
Yeah,
a 1 green fight spell that makes Gargo +3/+3. So that's sick.
yeah, again, that is no better than giant growth. I understand that. But sometimes a card like this, and that's why I enjoy the wackiness of Unfinity, sometimes the ceiling can be really, really high. And people just need to add a little bit of fun into their commander decks.
Yep. I love it. Sounds like a fun time and one that I probably will not be playing anytime soon. But oh man, well guys, that is 20 cards that we believe that the great people watching this should be playing instead. So let us know down below if we've convinced you on Embiggen and if you're going to start adding that to all of your green decks, or if you like or dislike any of our choices. We should we'll put a list of all 20 of them in the description so you can follow along at home and put in that TCG player order. You can just copy and paste it right in. But thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, really appreciate you guys. Again, link to our Discord's down in the bio. Come yell at us about our decisions on there, and we will see you next time on the MTG Thoughtcast. See ya.
Later.